All right. Is everything functioning? I started a couple minutes early. Make sure everything's running. Let me come over here and take a quick peek. Yes. All right. We are live streaming about a minute before official start time. So it seems just like my my Zoom classes. Okay. And all right, let's see here. We'll wait another minute before we get started. And where is that? There it is. All right, cool. All right, do I have everything necessary depending upon questions? I think so. Pens, pencils, paper, notes. I do have a new monitor. I got a bigger monitor. I had like a 15-inch side monitor for popping stuff over to. So, and then I had to rig up a different means of holding my camera since it's not sitting on the top of the smaller monitor. So I put it on like a microphone stand with a with a contraption at the top that holds the little Osbot camera that I'm working with. So, all right, it is 2 o'clock. Hey guys, it's Rusty Nelson, your college art professor, and we are live streaming. Today is what, January 26th. It's Monday, getting week 3 of the new semester started. So hope everybody has been watching some of my entry-level, beginner-level demos that I've started since the start of the year. Both, let's see, I walked through a basic mark making tutorial, just getting your mark making skills, being able to make a interesting and creative mark on the paper. And then let's see, I did a introduction to watercolor, where we're dealing with the 4 states of watercolor, the 3 stages of watercolor, getting that stuff down there, and then the 5 states of color saturation of watercolor that you can work with to get up and running. So hopefully everybody's been practicing those 2 things. And then I did my first kind of walkthrough of the Andrew Lumis Drawing Heads and Hands book. I started with chapter 1, which was essentially a short chat with the reader, and I'm going to walk my way through that book and do some demos and talk about what Andrew Lumis is actually saying and showing in the book, and hopefully coming along with him on that teaching instruction, that ride that he's put down into that book. So it's a good book. It's definitely got a nice vintage vibe to it as you're reading through it, but really good illustrations in it as well. And then I did a follow-up, my second video on drawing, mastering basic 2D shapes and 3D forms. 3D forms and some rudimentary perspective on a recent video from just last Saturday. So yeah, that's it. And then this coming Saturday, let's see, I'm bouncing back over to the watercolor, and then I'm also working on my next Lumis chapter, which it's the men's heads in the book, chapter 2, and it's a big one. So I'm gonna have to break it into multiple videos, I think, over the next few weeks, because it has a ton of information in it and various things you need to practice if you're going to really kind of figure out the Lumis method. And just in my preview of the kind of reviewing and going through the whole chapter and everything again, it's really kind of something where there is a lot of flexibility with the Lumis method, and he actually allows for the fact that you can make variations to the head, the shape, the jaws, and everything for the different type of heads and the various looks that the varying differing looks that people have. So anyway, you know, and that one thing I forgot to do out there, because nobody's zoomed in, I forgot to mention out on my community tab for people to let them know that I'm doing my live stream again. But it is a weekly thing, so if you're watching this as a video on my channel, not live, definitely come in, bounce in. Hey, I do have somebody. Looky there. Oh, Okay, so Scott TH and B91. Is that right? B9L? Sorry, I missed that. What day is the watercolor course? Oh, the watercolor stuff I normally post those on Saturday. They're not a live session or anything. So I'm working through some of the basic things that I do in my watercolor class up at the university. So it's kind of running concurrent with what I'm doing up at the university right now. Here, let me refresh that. There might be more people out there. Come on, wakey. Oh, good, I do. I have 12 viewers out there. So sorry about that. I needed to refresh my screen. So yeah, the watercolor, I did the 4 states video I posted a couple weeks ago. And this coming week, it's going to be basic shapes. So we're going to work with taking those, almost like what I did with the drawing I posted on Saturday. We're going to do the same thing with the watercolor. So we're going to take some of those basic shapes, the circle, the square, make some cubes and some triangles, and then apply the 4 states, 3 stages of watercolor to create some 3-dimensional forms. And it's a standard exercise I have my students do just to, you know, gain some control over the media so they can have an experience of mixing up the colors to the proper solution, applying it to the paper with some flair without dibby-dabbing and overworking, and then and just trying to control and get something that doesn't look like a big fuzzy wet mess. So okay, so you did the I'm looking at the I've got to figure out, before I answer this, I got to figure out something. I'm not doing something right. Some of these comments, maybe I'm supposed to highlight them. Let me check. If I click on it, does it show? I got it to where it should show up on screen. So I don't have my tech figured out just yet. Yes. Oh, okay. So you did the watercolor, the line art, drawing an ink line and then adding color on top of it. Now that's a really easy way of kind of easing into watercolor, because your line art, your ink drawing is serving as the structure and the definition, and then the color works in support of all of that structural line work that you're doing with an ink drawing. So it is kind of a nice way to ease in and add color into a black and white line art, ink drawing, pen and ink drawing, or a marker drawing. You do have to be careful with that technique to make sure you have an indelible ink or marker that when you come back in on top with the watercolor, your ink line doesn't fuzz out and everything. Oh, good. I'm glad you liked it. It's a fun, that is a very fun technique. And it's really handy to take out if you're just going out with a sketchbook and inking up something and maybe making a mental note, or even taking your watercolor set with you as you go out and paint. You can just mix up. It doesn't take much. I mean, a little dinky brush and a little watercolor pan set, and you can do the whole thing on location. And hopefully one of these days soon, once I'm well, if you don't know, I'm sure you may already know, I've probably commented enough on it, but I'm retiring in May, so I'm really hoping to have a lot more time to do plein air painting and going out on location and doing those kind of things. And I'm going to also not only get back up to speed with my plein air stuff, because whenever I'm teaching my drawing or yeah, it's my drawing course, my observational drawing course, and even my watercolor course in the spring when it starts to finally warm up. I'll kick my students outside. We'll all go outside and find some things to watercolor and paint. But that's something I really hope to do once I retire, to get out there. But I also need to practice, and I've got the rig and everything set up to where I can film and record everything that I'm doing on location out in the real world, instead of just sitting here in my studio every week. So, but yeah, I'm just I'm just hanging on by my fingernails, trying to make sure I get these things done every week as well. My last semester, I've kind of, well, I've got multiple levels of a 3D modeling class. I have an intro to watercolor class, and then I have 2 illustration classes that I'm teaching. One's a digital illustration class, and the other is digital figure that I'm teaching. So all of these things are all a high flex, meaning I can do them in person, Zoom streaming live at the same time as the in-person class, and then I record everything and I can post it, and the students can watch it later on. And it's all high flex and very flexible for the students, depending upon whatever their situation is. If they like coming into class, they can definitely come into class. Or if something happens during the week that they can't make it, they can either Zoom in or they can watch it asynchronously on YouTube via the learning management system that we're working with. So anyway, yeah, it's a lot of fun. Having a lot of fun. My last semester, but I think I'm going to be able to pick it up and up my YouTube game once I'm retired. So let's see, I definitely was talking about, yep, I already covered that. How about that? I didn't even have to say that. But yeah, I'm right now with my watercolor class, I'm a little behind here from where we're at up at the university in my watercolor class. They just had some fruit still life. So working with basic organic shapes, so they could pick a fruit, a vegetable, which is a really simple shape. You're going to have to figure out volume and form, but also textures and lighting and backgrounds and all that stuff. So they worked on that last week, and then this week we're working with. Actually, I gave them another natural form. Hi, Brazil. I gave them another assignment today where we're working with rocks. So it's a fractured rock. It's good because it's a facet exercise, essentially, getting used to understanding how each facet on the rock is going to catch the light differently and have a different tone, different color. There's the overall color of what the rocks will look like. And so that was fun. I did a little demo for them this morning. Actually, it went really well. It went pretty quick. So again, watching a tutorial, a demo by somebody, they'll make it look a lot easier than it is, especially if you're a true beginner at any of this stuff. So the biggest thing when you're learning watercolor is, and it's not so much it can be a problem with drawing, but you just got to be careful not to overwork it and know when to stop, or being able to inject whatever interpretation and flair you want to into the piece. So, hey, Virginia, how are you doing? So we got all sorts of, man, that's a pretty good broad range there of people. So, oh, what other, yeah, definitely, yeah, I've already covered all that stuff right there. I've been bad about posting on my other social media platforms again. I try to, I'm really been working on just focusing on YouTube and building the audience here. I do have a Facebook account. I actually have kind of a subset Facebook account. Although I've got my YouTube account. If I do something, no, it's my Instagram account, which that's Facebook. I don't have it set to the right. Facebook, my Instagram is not set to the right Facebook profile, so it's posting to my personal one and not my YouTube channel version of my Facebook appearance. So I got to get that figured out. And Oh, let's see here. I haven't live streamed. I know my brother, who's a minister, he records directly to Facebook. I've never done that, so I could probably do it through OBS. I'll have to check. I think you maybe do multiple streams, one to YouTube and one to Facebook at the same time. I'm pretty sure you can. If you can think it up, I'm sure there's somebody who has figured it out. So, well, yeah, feel free to ask any questions if you have any art related, design related, watercolor related, figure related kind of things. Like I said, I'm really kind of excited about getting into the Lumis and really kind of taking that deep dive into the book and working our way through the chapters. So yeah, part 1, chapter 2 is part 1, men's heads. And if you notice in that download from my website, should be the description, video description should have a link over to my website. You can download the PDF for drawing heads and hands directly from my website. It is from the National Archives. I downloaded it from there. And if you go into it and are reading any of the copy and of the pages in it, you'll see somebody, whoever had this version of the book that they photographed all the pages of this book, they had gone in and underlined all the interesting parts in each one of the chapters. So that's kind of interesting to see if their takeaway is the same thing that catches my attention. So, or vice versa. Maybe their attention is drawing me into it. So, but it is going to be a long chapter, I think, to get through, because he's covering so much. And as soon as the part 1, men's heads, it goes into I think the female heads as well. So that was fun. And if this whole deep dive into the book goes well, I'm planning on maybe doing the same thing with the figure drawing book, Figure Drawing for All It's Worth. So that one's a lot of fun, and I'm doing that right now with my digital illustration class, getting my students up to speed with the Lumis mannequin and getting proportions and everything established correctly there using that whole method. So it's not the only method. Actually, they've done a few of the they did a week and a half of Lumis mannequins, and then I'm showing them a bunch of videos on YouTube from watercolor artists, and I did a little digital demo of the watercolor method for just painting silhouettes of figures in scenes, where it's really all about the shape and that little dot for a head, and then a quick, what's the carrot method? If you've never seen the carrot method, you can paint a carrot that it'll look like a figure. The viewer will read it as a figure. So, hey Dublin, good to hear from you. So, Antoinette P7W, hello, how are you? So, all right, so just check. I still wonder, there must be a damn code I have to copy and paste into my OBS software. I am having a better couple of weeks with my technology up at the university. It's not quite as frustrating in the last few days. I remember have adjusted to the new way of getting all my, well, I think I was telling you the week before, maybe just last week, where I was trying to, well, I've got a TV over my shoulder, or the students can watch, if they're in person, they can see what I'm doing on screen on the big TVs. I have like 5 TVs in the room. So, but I also have a little, an espresso tablet, pressure sensitive tablet that you can draw and paint with over there. So I'm having to, work with my camera on my monitor, and then I have the little screen over here, and then Zoom, you can share the screen going from the main camera over to the monitor, but trying to get it to show up behind me on the big TVs. I finally got that situation. That did change from the previous semester. So software update or something happened, and I just had to figure it out on the fly. So the students, they have, well, That's one thing about this. This does feel a lot like my classes up at the university, where if I'm going to do any demos in this environment with the live streams, they're going to be typically my live demos. Kind of they'll go off the rails quite frequently, and a lot of times it's definitely from the technology kind of throwing me for a loop, or sometimes even just not so much with the traditional stuff. I never had that big a when I used to do a lot of demos traditionally. We had document cameras that you could kind of move around and set over your artwork as you're drawing and stuff. So we still have them. We just don't use them that much anymore. That everything is so heavily digital in our program. So now the my watercolor class is in another classroom where I've had to kind of jury rig a table set up with a document camera, and again trying to get it connected up to the TV, and then remembering to either switch to the correct camera or share my screen to the students out on who are in the Zoom stream live. So there's definitely it's walking and chewing bubble gum at the same time. So. All right, does anybody have any questions? I did do some drawing last week and it went pretty well. Somebody was asking about how to draw hair without just drawing strands, right? So you have to kind of think of it in locks. Somebody was then mentioning that beards didn't have locks. They were kind of more of a gnarly, that's just a lot of irregular. I've seen a guy, I think it was an pen and ink artist, where was it? Yeah, I think it was just real light, irregular marks to represent the beard, whatever length of hair in there. And he would just kind of slightly overlap everything. And then he would go in and fill in the negative space and then create the lighter tone of the whiskers. So he's creating a really nice layering and depth effect with that technique, all done with ink, and he was doing it live with ink, no pencil sketches underneath it. So it was pretty impressive. So definitely that's one of those tutorials where you're either going to be very inspired or thoroughly demoralized with the skill that some of these artists are bringing into it. And I've been kind of looking out on Instagram. I'm pretty sure it's either Instagram or YouTube Shorts. There are some really nice watercolor portrait artists. Watercolor, oh man, they are getting some really gorgeous looking watercolors. So again, it's just a matter of what your interests are and what you want to do as you're getting started learning and building those skills, and really what your overall goal you're shooting for. Oh, let's see. I ran into an issue with my watercolors the other day where when I put them on my mixing area, it just turned into a ton of little dots and bubbles. Okay. Little dots and bubbles. So it's not mixing up into a nice puddle. It's kind of spreading out. I think somebody, I'm trying to remember, it's normally with a new palette is when that's happening, and it has such a resist to it. So if you maybe take a little, like a 200 grit sandpaper, if it's a plastic palette, just kind of come in and do a quick sanding of that surface, and that'll then allow everything to puddle up. So you're getting your colors activated by spraying them, adding water to them. And you say tons of little dots and bubbles in them. That's interesting. No, I don't think it's just the act of spraying them would be causing that problem. It sounds like there's almost a reaction. So did you switch paints? New paints? Different type of paints? Or same paints and it's just starting to happen? That's interesting. Sounds like some sort of a chemical reaction. Like something got in them, like soda, baking soda or something. Hmm. I've not seen that. Normally, if you're same paint, so something's changed. I know that and is it all the colors or just one or two of the colors? I do know that when you've resaturated certain colors over, like if it's been in your palette, you just keep re-wetting them over time, they start getting granular. I've seen that. And then you just have to clean them out and get some new colors. Greens, I've seen some greens do that. There's a couple of reds. Was it a cadmium deep red maybe that did that to me one time? I definitely remember a viridian doing that, a green. And I think I even had like a burnt sienna one time. It just gets real granulated. It won't reabsorb the water and you have to really work at it. And then when you lay it down on your paper, you get these little racing stripes across your wash because you're picking up the little granules of color. So it's just easier just to, you might take and try a little experiment. If you got that same paint in a tube, squirt it out onto a different palette and try your water again and see if that, maybe it might be an age thing. Okay. It's no same paint. Yeah, it's 100% sure I could. Was burnt sienna. Ultramarine blue. I've never had trouble with my ultramarine. Yeah, see if it is. So if it doesn't do it out of the tube on a different palette using the same water, there's something contaminated or something's happening with the color in your existing palette. So you might just need to clean it out and get started with it again. So yeah, because I do that too. I have a big squirt of colors in my palette, and then I'll just reactivate them. I've seen people where they'll wrap them up with saran wrap or something like that to keep them moist between painting sessions, but I find it's just as easy to, and I do have a sprayer. And I normally use my sprayer like on the paper when I'm trying to keep the paper wet or moist if I'm still trying to get some effects. But if I'm reactivating my paints, I normally use a little squirt tube thing like that. Just drop a couple of drops in it, or this one. I use this one quite a bit as well. So these are handy when you're out on location. So you can just drop a couple drops into the pan and get everything moist again, and just snap the lid back on, toss it in your backpack, and off you go. So cool. That's weird. I don't know what that would be. But causing a kind of a fuzzy and bubbles. And they're not granular. It's just fuzzing up. Well, that's we'll have to see. Just it's time to do some experiments and see what it is that might lead you to a solution there. So that's fun. Oh, let's see here. That was a good question. I don't know if I helped solve it any, but give you something to do for a day or two and see what works. I have been working, I'll tell my students, and they're typically working, they're 19, 20-year-old students, and they're heading over to Hobby Lobby buying some of the cheaper student grade stuff. So they're sometimes fighting the issue of just figuring out the limitations of the student grade stuff. And I always say to do that. It's okay to do that when you're first getting started. But I've been doing my demos with some really good paper, the Arch 300 pound paper. And It's like, oh, that stuff is so sweet. It lays down such, the color just absorbs so nicely into it. And it's got that gorgeous tooth, so you can really get some nice crunchy effects when you're doing some dry brush with it. And it'll stay wet long enough to where you can kind of mess around in various locations and let it kind of dry off a little bit, come back in, soften edges and everything. Where the Canson paper, that is a hot rod paper. It dries so damn fast. You have to be right on top of it to get whatever effect you're going for before you move on to the other. It dries just like that. And all right, let's see. Oh, that's weird. Yeah. So it went on the paper just fine. So it's just bubbling up and lots of dots and little dots and bubbles. You know, I have seen some of my, when my paint's been in my palette too long, I have seen mold begin to grow on it. So if I've kept it damp too long over multiple sessions, you know, maybe I'm working daily or a couple times a day and that paint just never dries out. I've seen, this happens in yellow a lot. I've seen it with the yellow and the orange. Maybe the other colors are so dark I haven't noticed. Actually, I do. I have seen it on one of the blues before. So I start seeing a little growth of mold beginning to happen in the well as well. So at that point, I'll either scrape it out, and I'm figuring by that time it's about time to swap out and put some new color into the palette. So I'm getting ready to do a big painting. Because of everything I do on YouTube right now and up at the university, it has to be fairly mobile and I have to be able to drag everything in and set it up, or I'm sitting right here at my table doing stuff. So the scale of my stuff, I mean, before I started YouTube, I was working, what, 16 by 20, 18 by 24, or 11 by 14, in that range. So pretty good scale. It makes for a nice matted artwork when you're all done. But everything's kind of shrunk down. So right now I have a big piece. I'd say I'm getting ready to do it. It's about, well, probably a 30 by 40 inch watercolor. So I was just feeling a little constrained by the small size and thought I would give it a try. And actually I have fairly fresh colors of gouache in my palette over there. So I'm gonna do it. It's gonna be gouache, but I'm gonna do it in a watercolor method. So, that's a good idea. An anti-mold spray for the colors. It doesn't happen that much for me, so it better be cheap. Better be cheap to keep me from getting moldy. So, and that's Himi, Himi. I'll look that up. So that sounds like a fun product. All right, the color. That's weird. Yeah, I think I have seen it's happened in the oranges, greens, and the blue, I think. Anyway, but yeah, it's going to be a big watercolor, and it's a landscape. Again, that's one of the things that happened when I started working more with watercolor about 10, 15 years ago. And it was a transition from gouache coming into watercolor. It really opened up the opportunities to start doing landscapes. So up until I started really getting into watercolor, as my primary media, I really hadn't done a lot of landscapes. Actually, I hated landscapes because I always felt so tight and controlled with painting it with gouache. And when I was doing a lot of gouache, it was mostly figure and people that I was painting. I think I mentioned this in previous episode as well, that I worked with old antique photographs and injected my own color palette into it with pictures of long gone relatives and things like that in it. And it's almost like a historic illustration is kind of what I was going for. I started doing that in graduate school. And it was a lot of fun, but after doing it for about 10 years, I was getting a little bored with it. So moving into a whole new method, process, and way of working with the wet media that was different than what I was doing with gouache. And I realized that watercolor was so much, when actually working with it as watercolor, the method, it's so much faster. And and I really did appreciate the speed that the watercolors come together once you understand the color blocking stage, and you're getting everything kind of assigned with the proper range of underpainting tones and colors and hues, and then moving in and finding the specific shapes, and starting to add the saturation and the contrast, and then touching everything up with the contrast and structural line work at the back end. So it was so much faster than what I used to do with gouache that I was able to practice more and get a whole lot better at my landscapes, and they started feeling a whole lot more spontaneous and expressive and not so controlled. And like I said, I've said this in a lot of my videos, I'm a recovering photorealist, so I've always had that propensity to be really high-strung, tight, and uber detailed. And the artists that I always have admired, I did admire the realists, but the stuff that I thought was the coolest was the expressive watercolor artists. So that, I think, it really just blows open the door subject matter wise once you understand it, and you can then go out and see a scene, a perfect composition, maybe the light's just striking something just right, and you can just stop and do a quick sketch of it, make some notes, or even if you have your little small watercolor palette with you, you can do a quick study that you can then translate into a bigger painting. So, but yeah, that's what I'm trying to do over here on the, I got my watercolor table. I actually have a watercolor easel. I've never actually ever used it. I've always worked on a drafting table. Now that I'm doing YouTube with the, I've got my iMac on a VESA arm and my second screen and everything. So I'm still working on a drafting table, even all these years after starting my graphic design career on a drafting table and then moving it into a computer. So it's kind of bringing both of my ends of my career together with all the digital stuff here and the drafting table here. But I'm going to do my first watercolor, big watercolor on my watercolor easel that I've used it mainly as a display stand for artwork in my living room. So I finally drug it down to my studio, and well, mainly because I'm working on repairs, getting my house ready to sell this spring. So in preparation of my looming retirement in May, and getting everything ready to spruce up for the people to come through and look at the house in the spring. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting year with once May hits and summer hits, and trying to get transitioned back to where we're planning on going. So, and that's where I'm thinking all of my plein air setup will start coming into play this summer, once I tear down the studio here and until my other studio is ready. I'll probably be doing a lot of plein air tutorials and out on location. At least that's the plan. We'll see if it works. And I do have a mobile, not only the plein air rig, but I do have a mobile computer set up where I can still do my live streaming with a laptop and wherever I'm at. As long as I have some decent Wi-Fi, we should be good. So, all right. Well, I really have exhausted just about everything that's been going on this week. Week 3, so I've got 12 weeks left, but who's counting? I think it's going to go pretty quick. It's been very cold here. It was like 6 degrees below zero here in the Midwest this morning. So we are all kind of hunkered in. And actually, my first class I had this morning, I love 7:30 classes. My students hate them, but I love them. to just get up and get in and have my class. And I drug my butt into the university and went into my classroom and fired up the Zoom stream and everything. And I was the only one in the room, so everybody else zoomed in. They weren't too brave about getting out in 6 below zero. So, and actually, my daughter lives up in North Dakota, and we're actually colder here in Missouri than she was up in North Dakota. So, so Burr, put on some long johns and stay warm. So, oh golly. Yeah, I don't think Brazil, you guys don't have to worry about that, do you? Now, Virginia, you guys have been getting hit. And Dublin, you guys, you're kind of moderate. You get cold there. You have to let me know. How cold does it get there in Dublin in the winter? All right. Well, I think we've been going for about 40 minutes, so I do appreciate everybody zooming in today. We have had 12 viewers going. Live 9 viewers. We've had 12 views, so it's varied between 12 and 9. So I think that's about, it's a little better than last week. So let anybody know that they want to come in and ask questions. I am here to answer some of those questions to the best of my ability. So I'm going to go looking for that anti-mold spray. That's a good idea. So I'll see you next week, 2 o'clock on Mondays. That's the time. So I'll try to do better. I'll make some posts out to my community tab and remind people about it as well. So, hey, thanks for viewing. And if you got any value out of today's little live stream, please give me a like and a subscribe. And again, head into the video description. I'll have some links in there, affiliate links, download links, and all that good stuff. Got some products out on Gumroad. Go over there. And if you think I'm doing anything on the channel worth a hoot, head over to Patreon, give me a $5 a month membership. That helps out, and hopefully it will keep me going. So have fun. See you next week.